I have this weird fascination around all the reasons why we feel stuck or unable to express our mission to live authentically or to live free. I want to say that at this point, self liberation is at the core of my work, but I also want to say it's a little bit of an obsession. So I've been exploring for years and years within myself every time I facilitate all the reasons why we don't allow ourselves to express our inherent blueprint, to shine our light, to unleash our craft, to pursue what is really meaningful. And most people often think it is either a strategy problem, a mindset issue, or because they don't necessarily know what to do. And I beg to differ on that level because I believe you're not stuck because you don't know what to do. It is very often because there is too much inner turmoil, too much fragmentation that is preventing you from first tuning into your knowingness and from acting on what you already know. And some of these inner imprints that are preventing us from acting on what we already know and tuning into what the knowing that is already here has to do with our early childhood dynamics or relational imprint. I like to call it that way. And this is some of what we're going to be exploring today. I think it's really key. It's really crucial because in my years of facilitation, that is what I keep seeing when I'm supporting somebody. We inevitably get to look into that. And that's also the reason why I included that in my book, Scars of Gold, which is at this point in time, depending on what you listen or watch this podcast, is on sale. And the ebook version, let me put it that way, up until December 13th, you can get the ebook version for as little as $2.99 on your favorite online retailer, whether it's Amazon, Kindle, Apple Books, Barnes and Nobles, doesn't matter. So that was just a little side note there. So if you haven't had the book yet, Scars of Gold, I'm inviting you to go find it, to tune into it. It's a potent book that will support you, at the very least potent in my experience, on your path of self-liberation. So that said, on this episode of Enheartened, if you're new here, welcome. We are going to explore a little bit deeper how your relational shadows really, they impact your capacity to lead, to learn, to serve, to shine your light, to express your authenticity. We're going to explore how the mother wounds / shadow, the father wounds / shadow, how they impact your ability to lead, to serve. And also how I often talk about the very toxic mix between the inner critic inside and the hurt inner child inside. What happens when they are actually the ones leading your light, because there is such a thing. And what does that look like? And I also thought it was really important to look into this at this time of the year. This is the calm before the storm of the holidays. Sometimes I've seen some people often have the holiday dissociation period where we just succumb to previous patterns, previous tendencies, and sometimes it may take you a long time to go back to your center way after the new year has started. So the invitation of this episode is also it's about how to step into 2026 from a place of more sovereign inner authority. I think that would be the best Christmas gift, the best holiday gift. And one last thing is this Saturday, December 13th, I am hosting a one-day retreat on precisely this topic. We're going to expand that deeper. It's a full-day retreat. We start at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We finish around 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to dive in deep into how these relational shadows are impacting your capacity to lead, but we're going to work on uprooting them. It's about integration. I'm going to take you through so many shadow integration journeys, and we're going to really map it for yourself. But more on this later. Now let's dive into this conversation, which is at the core, I don't think allowing yourself to express your light, I don't think it has a lot to do with strategy. I don't think mindset alone is enough. Because one way I like to put it is, you learn to lose your light or to get out of touch with it or to abandon it in relationships. And therefore, the work to reclaim it is also relational. Whether it's in a relationship with people you serve, relationship to yourself, relationship with the internalized voices of your mom, your dad, the figures of authority living in your head rent free, relationship with your inner critic, relationship with your inner child, relationship with maybe even your audience. It is relational work. And the more I dive into this, the more I'm just like, oh, it is so important to create a secure relational attachment to your brightness. And that requires anchoring secure, healthier relationships with the entire ecosystem that makes who you are. And we're going to dive into that some more so that you don't get lost with the terms that I'm using at the moment. I am aware that some of them, the concept may be elusive, but we're going to dive into that some more because sometimes we blame ourselves for not feeling consistent enough, for being afraid of visibility, for being afraid of being seen, for collapsing when, our anxiety hits the fan when it comes to bringing forth our true selves. But we actually don't start, we really don't see how these early childhood dynamics can influence that. And the point here is not to go on another journey of blaming your caregivers. It is a journey of reclaiming radical responsibility and reconciling with what needs to be met with love within yourself so that you can be free of expressing your brightness. That is the intention. And the only intention here. So that needs to be said. So a key point that are here is I often talk about these master fears: fear of humiliation, alienation, loss, persecution, betrayal, and also the death of an identity that we need to go through sometimes to embrace our brightness. And they can show up as the fear of losing love, the fear of losing belonging, the fear of being seen as too much, the fear of being ridiculed and criticized or exiled. And sometimes as well, when it comes to your brightness, the fear of responsibility, because responsibility sometimes feels like a trap. It feels like it might clip your wings. For most people, we often have this kind of Peter Pan syndrome when it comes to embracing our light. We only want the good that comes with it. We don't want the responsibilities that come with it, especially if you wish to serve some people. There are responsibilities that come with it, and they can feel burdening. So these are things to explore. So the key part here is what happens usually during our childhood is we have these, because as children, it's imperative for us to remain attached to the people who are supposed to love us most, meaning caregivers, parents. What we learn is fragmentation. It's like, what do I need to repress within myself to stay attached to mom or dad? What do I need to shut down within myself to stay attached to them? Sometimes that includes your brightness and your gifts. Sometimes that means the very traits that you would love to unleash in the world are what would have caused your inner child to feel completely exiled, to be judged and criticized by the people who traditionally were supposed to support you most. But that's just a limited picture of the whole thing. And again, in the best of your ability, don't let that be another way to collapse into self-victimization. That's not the intention. That's really not the intention. But because due to our willingness to stay connected, to stay attached to these caregivers, we often repress aspects of ourselves. It creates some inner distortions within ourselves. And these inner distortions are impacting what I like to think of as inner archetypes. We often talk about the inner child. That's a very common archetype. But we rarely talk about the inner mother. We rarely talk about the inner father. Because these are also archetypes that have a tremendous impact on your capacity to serve, to lead, to unleash your light. Think of them as inner pillars, and these archetypes can get distorted because of the relationship that you had with your own caregivers, right? Your ability to receive, your ability, for example, for the inner mother, your ability to receive, your ability to feel belonging, to feel nurture, or to also nurture yourself, your ability to rest without feeling guilt, your ability to also feel worthy, worthy of love, worthy of being met, worthy of appreciation. That's a key archetype that can get distorted as well. And the inner father, for example, your ability to lead, to be decisive at times, your ability to create proper containment for yourself when needed, your ability to speak, to stand, to be visible. Think about it as the erection of a tower to a certain degree, to set boundaries, to tolerate visibility, which is sometimes not that easy to tolerate. It requires a nervous system maturation that is so important. It requires that you make peace with your own shadow to a great degree. And you already know the inner child, the part that is so attuned to your fears, also the fear of the consequences that come up with life, the part of you that needs to be kind of held, the part of you that sometimes is in touch with your emotional vulnerability, but also the part of you that can be a big dreamer, imaginative, the part of you that has that access to the wonder that life has to offer, the play. And the inner critic is another part that comes there and that can show up in a very self-shaming way. It lashes out. There's a lot of perfectionism, a lot of pressure, and sometimes even a lot of berating yourself morally. And sometimes the inner critic can become a spiritualized inner critic. That's telling you, oh, you should always be in alignment. You should never judge anybody, or you judge somebody, you're bad. Things like that. So these archetypes, when, for example, the inner mother and the inner father are distorted, very often the inner critic is what leads your light. You got to shine your light perfectly, and if you don't, you better shut the hell up. And then the inner child is on the other side of that, being like, oh, I need to do everything I can to show up perfectly. I need to ask permission for everything. I can't do anything that is not allowed. And it prevents you from tuning into your own spiritual inner authority. And the distortions actually that happen, it's like when the inner mother is distorted, for example, there's a lot of overgiving, emotional caretaking, very loose boundaries. There's a lot of losing self to maintain harmony, confusing approval with belonging, all these different things. That's just to name a few. And these have so many ramifications in your own work, in like the thought of shining your light. There's that fear of being sometimes extracted from. And there's sometimes martyrdom when it comes to really putting yourself out there, sharing your gifts. That's just to give you an idea of the map. It's like it starts relationally, and then it has an impact over how you perceive shining your light. And those things can be, for so many reasons, for so many people, reasons why they will say no. It's like, yes, I crave shining my light, but no, I don't want to do that because the cost seems to be too high. Same thing with the inner father distortions, because think about it, the inner father is a part of you, it's that archetype. When in balance, it's like holding the frame to a certain degree. And of course, you can also see the similarities with like masculine and feminine energetics within yourself as well. But think about the inner father as the part of you that it's like the you can do it energy. It's like the you can do it. You can rise through it. But it's not a forceful, it's like a supportive, encouraging. And it's one that also makes room for imperfection and failure and sees failure and even congratulates you for the failure. It's like, I'm not sure if you've ever seen that. It's like the presence of a supportive parent that you failed, and it's like, instead of being like, oh, you're like, oh, the inner father? Oh, congratulations. But in a way that is really meaningful. Like, I really appreciated loving you, seeing, trying your best, even though the outcome was not what you expected. Look at you. Look at you embracing some of the blisters, the holy blisters. It's that force within you that can hold you as it empowers you as well. It's like it fans the flames of your power. So important. And the inner mother can also hold you in a nurturing way. and bring a quality of compassion that sometimes the masculine blueprint may not necessarily be leading with. But the inner mother is able to bring that, the compassion, to allow yourself to receive. Give yourself a break, a well-earned one. So when they are distorted, visibility feels unsafe. There's a difficulty for the inner father, difficulty taking decisive action. It's another example, the fear of authority, including stepping into your own inner authority. Procrastination rooted in the fear of consequences, shrinking your own power. And because of that, when the inner child, for example, is running your mission, because we have this love-hate relationship sometimes with shining our light, we romanticize that. But in my experience, it is enlivening, it is fulfilling. But I am at a point in my journey where I do not romanticize that. There's like a very lucid relationship. The honeymoon phase of allowing myself to honor my gifts is long gone, long dead. It's like a marriage. And I want it to be a healthy marriage. I don't want it to be a bad one. That means I constantly have to mature inside of it. So when the inner child is running your mission, it feels like everything feels personal. It even feels existential. It feels like life or death. If somebody says no to an offering, it feels like they just crushed your soul. And then it hurts. It hurts too. Creativity feels like danger to a certain degree, and because of that, we have so many creatives that keep their things in a closet. It's like, no, 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 I don't want to bring it to the external eye because the feedback might just crush my spirit. Expression becomes sometimes very emotional, impulsive rather than sovereign. And there is just a constant need for reassurance that is also there. And when that mix is combined with a loud inner critic, and sometimes a spiritual inner critic that disguises itself as higher alignment and then judges you for every single thing that you do wrong. Oh, you didn't guide this session really well. You must be a piece of shit. Oh, you didn't hold space in the perfect way possible. You should never ever hold space again. Oh, when you express this thing online, one person disagreed. That means, you didn't do it right. Then you should shut up forever. It's like, give me a break here. But this is literally how we feel at times. So the inner critic may weaponize spiritual language to shame your expression, and it keeps you small under the guise of sometimes being holy. It reinforces unworthiness and all of these different things. It is just again to paint that picture how our early relationships or relational shadows, they distort sometimes the inner mother, the inner father inside, and when they are not present, the inner critic just runs the show. The inner critic and the hurt inner child, they run the show. And it's a mix that does not make you feel sovereign. And this is the reason why I'm so passionate about doing this work. This is the reason why I wrote about it in Scars of Gold again. This week is a perfect opportunity to get the book at a discounted rate, the ebook version. You can check that out. But it's also the reason why I thought about it in full transparency before I started even making this recording. And for the event that happens this Saturday, the online retreat, I thought about this work for so long. It's like how I've worked with so many light workers, so many people who hired me to work one-on-one on unleashing their voice and putting yourself out there and becoming the leaders that the work deserves. Because that's really a question that's stayed with me since, especially this year. That question has been present. Am I the leader that my mission deserves at the moment? It became present when I finished writing the book and it was time to put it out there. In October, I was getting married, so there was pressure in there as well. And my parents were flying over here to be with us for the wedding. There was just so much, and my mission needed me. My life needed me as well, personal life. And there were so many moments where I felt like my capacity was stretched. And on one end, it felt like, oh, you can meet it. And another end, there was like a part of me. This flared up, especially when around the area where my parents were supposed to be here. And I started realizing my own patterns in a different way. I was just like, oh, I see the part of me that just wants to act like a child right now. Like, I see that so clearly. The like all the things are showing up. Part of me that is acting out a little bit. The part of me that wants to collapse. It's like, what does it look like to be the man that my mission deserves right now? What does that look like? And the answers became a little bit obvious. And with that, there was again an invitation to stretch, to meet the parts of me that I hadn't loved. Sometimes you have these aspects of you that just emerge in the perfect circumstances. It's almost like I needed my parents to be there so that these aspects of me would come up, so that I could see that some aspects of the mother wound were present exactly in the moment when my launch of the book is about to happen. I'm seeing myself sometimes trying too hard to overgive again, because that's how I used to connect with my mom growing up. My parents had 6 kids. I'm the second child. I have an older brother. My mom was a working mom. I was born in African Cameroon. And in the 90s, I was born in 89. So in the 90s, the country was in economic crisis. So she was a working mom of not 6 kids yet at that time. My dad was also working. So she was constantly, that's just a remembrance, right? I experienced my mom as constantly strained and tired. And it was hard to attune to her. And plus, not that it is the reason, she's also a Gemini. And sometimes it's was kind of hard to dance with, like, where is she emotionally? Just like, what does it look like to really feel that connection? So yeah, what did it look like to connect with my mom? Support her. And again, I'm not saying that in a way that is like disparaging. No, that was just it. We had to work, we had to do our things, we had to support her with the tasks at home, and we learned very young how to be responsible. Again, that's not that it is wrong there, but it was just the imprint. It was all set up. And that created a pattern where I'm like going through this period of my life where I feel like not deserving of rest. And I had to interrupt the pattern. So it is so important for you to even have your archetypal map of self-leadership, so that you know what at this point in time your mission requires of you to become the leader it deserves. Because when I ask that question to many people I serve, it's like, in truthful honesty, without BSing yourself, do you feel that you at this time are the leader that your mission deserves, or the leader that your relationship deserves, or the leader that your life needs? Maybe deserve is not the leader that your light needs. For most people, the answer is no. No. And the other question is, if your light could speak to you directly and would say to you, this is the kind of leader I need right now at this stage of your journey, what would it be? What is your light asking of you? What are the internalized relational patterns that it is asking of you to rework, to re-explore, to shift, to transcend to a certain degree? Because for some people, the consequence of having a distorted relationship with these distorted inner archetypes, like inner mother, inner father, with their inner child, also the inner critic running the show, what happens is your relationship with your light is almost like a trauma bond. You know? What I mean by that is you love this idea so deeply, but it's also the source of intense pain. Meaning, you are infatuated with the mission, you want it, and so, for so many, truthfully so, you really feel it within your bones, you really feel like you're led there. You're obsessed with the idea of shining your light, but your nervous system is terrified of what it takes to actually do what it takes to actually do that. It feels like your light is too demanding. Almost like it is an unloving parent. And we get mad at it at times. So there's like a push-pull dynamic. I love my purpose, it terrifies me. I want to be seen, but being seen feels like death. or I want success, but success feels unsafe. These different things are almost like ingrained. So it mirrors what I like to think of as our anxious attachment to our purpose. And for most of us, we have a certain degree of that. We can be avoidant. It's like, no, 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 no. Don't even get me close. Can be, we have an anxious attachment. We crave closeness. We fear abandonment. We clinging to it. And sometimes we collapse. I often like to say that for the most part, we are in a situationship with our light. But that situationship is actually created by our early relational blueprint. So what is the work? The work looks like many different things. First, what are the aspects of ourselves that we repressed to stay in touch with these caregivers? And exploring with your caregivers. And exploring within yourself the distortions of these core archetypes, the inner mother, the inner father, the inner child, and in what ways the inner critic is still running the show. And sometimes what happens is when you invite back the balanced inner mother, the balanced inner father, the sovereign self back at the table of leadership within, the critic inside of you shuts the hell up. That's what I experience, and that's what I see people experiencing. And then they become the kind of people who can actually create a healthy relationship with their own gifts, with their leadership. They can risk being seen, risk shining in ways that they know they can and they want to. They can risk doing that imperfectly. They can risk being free. And this is the place where I think strategy actually has its place, where the more you have that spiritual stamina to be like, okay, it is safe for me to show up in ways that it didn't feel safe before. That's the moment where the real magic begins, the real experimentation begins. That's the moment where you allow yourself to try things you haven't tried before. And that's the place where it really feels exciting. But it requires that you explore your own belonging system, your unresolved attachment wounds, old family patterns. And I think when I was thinking about it, I was just like, this time of the year is just the perfect invitation. The holidays around the corner. And for some people already starting to feel the uproar, the ancestral triggers, the visibility wounds, and the unmet needs resurfacing, especially during this time of the year. And that is the place where resourcing from these core inner archetypes, inner parent, inner mother, inner father, is so important. And this is not about rehashing your past. It is so that you can, again, refine. It's a refinement. For most people, you have already explored this early wounding for yourself in many ways. So it's a refinement, it's a deepening. And in my opinion, the places where you learn to repress your light, which are these core relationships, also need to be the places where you learn to reclaim it. And that's what some of the shadow integration journeys that we will go through during this online retreat on Saturday, December 13th, that's what they will be focused on. Symbolically, your psyche craves to do that. And my own personal story has been the main factor for me to become clear on this. I may have said this before, but when in 2014, towards the end of the year, I decided that I'm going to quit my PhD because I felt compelled to pursue more of what my heart is asking me to do. That already was a way to undo some of my early relational inheritance, if you wish, because what was internalized when I observed especially what my dad and mostly my dad, what he chose for his life, he was like, great athlete who even went to the Olympics in 1980, I think it was in Moscow, but did not fully pursue for some reason that, then wanted to be a musician, could have pursued that as well, recorded a bunch of material, did not pursue that, and then you see, as a sensitive kid that I was, you see a man constantly grieving. I often say that the cost of abandoning your light is grief. It's almost like existential grief. And you can find ways to be at peace with that. And many people do. But that as well is something ancestral. So I noticed that, internalized it. At some point during my journey, I also had this ambition for some reason. It's as if things that my parents weren't able to pursue, part of me wanted to pursue that. I wanted to be a musician at some point. And then there was a point in my life where it felt like, no, this is not the time. Maybe it's never going to be the time for me to be a musician. Who knows? Maybe I'll come back to it. But in that moment, it also felt like I was battling against that imprint. And in 2014, when I decided to leave, what happens is the first glimpse of liberating myself from that. And then through the journey, I realized, oh, what I really want to do is the kind of work that I'm doing today, but I feel unworthy of doing that. I'm like, who am I? Who am I to potentially become an author? It's like days were so clear in my mind at that time. It just felt so far away. Who am I to do this? Who am I to support people in their journey of healing and spiritual maturation and spiritual liberation? Like, who am I? And so what I did, I settled. Instead of going fully for what I'm doing right now, and maybe it was just a stepping stone, but I chose health coaching. Opened up a gym. Again, it just felt like a little bit of what I was modeled. So I had to unsubscribe fully from what was modeled. And something that we're going to do as well in this journey, in this retreat, will be to pay attention. What is the relationship with their own light that you've witnessed in your caregivers, in people around you? And how is that still like influencing your current now relationship with your own brightness? What does that look like? Where is the script still operating? So there are so many vows that we're going to dive in there to break within. So I had to break that agreement. So what I saw my dad do, for example, it was the example of, he always told us, like, he basically chose to be there for his family instead of pursuing what was meaningful for him. And I honor that. I benefited from that. There are some aspects of that I didn't like. The programs that I inherited from witnessing that, I did not like, but I'm sovereign enough to be able to change them. I refuse to relate to that story from the aspect of the child inside of me. The sovereign within says no. No. So in 2018, when we conceived our first son with Renee, and my son was born in January 2019, at that moment of conception, it's like I felt clearly in my head when it was a time for my son to be conceived. It was clear as day. I had dreamt of it the night before. The next day, I was just like, it's happening. And it was just so clear. And in that moment, it was the transformation of that story. I decided I was not going to be the example of a father or the example of a man who will attribute. It's because as a child, we often felt like it was because of us. I internalized it as, oh, it's our fault that he didn't pursue what was meaningful. And I wanted to dispel that. Never wanted to even remotely give to my children or to people I love. If you don't have children, it could be people you love. I don't want them to be the reasons why I will not shine my light. If you repress your light because of a fear of belonging, that is also unconsciously what you are saying to these people that you're afraid to be alienated from. You're basically telling them unconsciously, you are the reasons why I cannot pursue what is meaningful to my soul. And I never, ever wanted to do that to anybody. So to my children, I was just, at that moment, it was just the moment of, we're going to go all in. In 2018, we just shut down the gym. We're going to figure this out. We're going to find a way. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to bring you guys with me, meaning people I love, my family, and all of that. We're going to figure this out. So that's how you can begin to shift a pattern so powerfully. And that has opened a door for me that I did not think was possible for myself. I did not think was possible for myself. Sometimes when I relate to my life, it usually feels like there are these portals where I enter a new lifetime. You can call it timeline if you wish, but it feels like a new soul agreement almost. And that's what I really believe is possible when you do this work. You can embrace or claim new templates, new soul agreements. You can reclaim the spiritual capacity, the spiritual stamina to be free in ways you did not think were possible. And that's what was there. That's what was available for me. And I could tell a big old other story with regards to some of the mother imprints that were there, but I really think that this is giving you the point. This is giving you the point. All these imprints need to be undone. Allowing yourself to receive in ways you need to receive, allowing yourself to lead in ways your mission requires you to lead. And that is also, I think, one of the greatest gifts you can have for yourself as we are leaning in 2026, because I really feel like 2026 could be a year of sovereign leadership. What I mean by that is allowing yourself to dive into deeper embodiment, deeper emotional maturity. And also, I like the idea that I like this idea that your work has a nervous system. Your light has the craft you put into the world. It has a nervous system of its own. So if you were to think of your light itself or your craft, your mission as a being of its own, ask yourself, how strong is the nervous system of my craft? And for so many people, sometimes it's just like, oh, it's shaky because it mirrors directly your own nervous system when it comes to your ability to shine, when it comes to your ability to handle everything that comes with allowing yourself to express your truth, your authenticity, allowing yourself to be free. And I feel like 2026 is the year where this could be claimed even more powerfully. And this retreat is a portal into that. It's a portal into that. It's happening this Saturday, and I want to invite you in there so much more. It's going to be in 3 parts. So it's 6 hours. So we're going to have 3 blocks, and each block has a specific purpose. One block where we're going to map really your relational imprint. You're going to see that so clearly, and you're going to see your archetypal blueprint when it comes to shining your own light. It's like, who is running the show for you? And what does it look like to undo that, to rebuild inner authority? What does it look like to face all these kind of like nitty-gritty remnants of like mother wound and father wound that are distorting your capacity to lead from the heart? And what does it look like to also have this kind of sovereign emergence? That's how I see it. The sovereign emergence inside of you. I don't think your mission is waiting for a better strategy. I think it is waiting for, or it needs a more coherent you. And that's really what we are learning over and over again. So I'm inviting you to check out the retreat. You're going to find the details in the show notes wherever you're listening to this. And it's been a pleasure to journey with you. And also, man, if you've been enjoying these conversations and if you want more of them, give us a like, a subscribe. I don't know where you're listening to this, and a nice review. And the other thing is, another note I wanted to leave with, I'm going to have, because of the wedding, because of many things, I took a back seat a little bit with the interviews, but we have so many more interviews that are already recorded. I think so far we have many potent voices coming on the podcast, so you want to stay tuned for that. It has been a fall season of resourcing within myself, and I've needed that, and I've appreciated that, allowing myself to, again, step away from the overgiving and the overdoing. So yeah, thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting this work, and it's a pleasure to continue to co-create with you.